Welcome to the Breakthrough Moments podcast, a podcast where challenges meet opportunities. I'm Harold, and together with my co-host Lasse, we explore stories of innovators, leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs, and how they turn obstacles into game-changing breakthroughs. Get ready for insights that inspire and lessons that last. Subscribe now, and let's dive into the moments that define success. Welcome to today's episode of the Breakthrough Moments podcast. Today we have Leroy Lawrence, an entrepreneur with a strong background in both fintech and technology. So Leroy is the mastermind behind Pidgey, a unique B2B supply chain app that is using AI to transform the merchant-customer interaction dynamic. So today we're going to explore his journey, his story. So join us to go into the nuances and experiences that Leroy has gone through and his findings and his experience. So with that, welcome to the podcast, Leroy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I gave a very brief introduction to your venture with Pidgey. But could you give us more of a kind of like an in-depth, what was the origin, like how did that come to be and what is it exactly?
So Pidgey was a real first world problem. Me traveling a lot. I think I was doing about 76 flights a year on business trips, wanting to buy products wherever I was in places, but always having the same issue of not ending up buying the thing I really wanted to buy, which was showing customer demand, but not the right processes for me to actually go ahead and make that purchase, because to an extent I didn't really think about how to do it. There was no very obvious and approachable way for me to buy those things that I wanted. I couldn't carry them in my suitcase without breaking them or losing them. And on the occasion that I was offered to have something sent home, I generally declined. I know some people may be less risk averse than me in that scenario, and they do go for it, but I've often just said no. And the reason for that has been I just didn't necessarily trust that shop owner to really send it home. You know, I'm in who knows where. They could just take my money, say thanks very much, put the product back on the shelf, and I would just never hear from them again with no recourse to go back for it. So I could see I was having this problem regularly. And I just got sick and tired of it. And I thought there's got to be a solution for this. And so I think I'd got home from Zanzibar, from a trip to Zanzibar during lockdown, and just decided, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. And typically when I put my mind to something, every now and then I work it out. So we'll see if this one works or not.
Yeah. So basically it is what Pidgey is that if you are, let's say, abroad on travel and you want to buy something, but there's uncertainty if the item it will even arrive back home, or arrive back home where you don't necessarily have the opportunity to bring it yourself. It is meant to solve that, and also the security for the customer, so that they can trust the merchant, or it's this, let's say, trustless layer in between the customer and the merchant, where you don't need to rely upon the merchant's, let's say, honesty, especially in, let's say, some countries abroad, and basically ensuring that it's a better customer experience when you buy something and you want to have it, let's say, shipped or brought to your location.
So it's like a custodian for your money. So you know that even if you spent $10,000 on something, you know that you're going to get what you wanted, or you'll get your money back. That's that kind of guarantee you've got in making that transaction. And ultimately that means you're likely to spend more money because you know it's protected when you make that transaction. So it benefits the shop owner because now they can make more money and sell bigger things. And you're happier because you bought the things that you actually do want to buy. And they're often unique products you can't find at home. Otherwise, you just buy them at home in the first place.
Yeah. But what's kind of like the market like for this? Because it sounds very similar. Like, I'm from Norway, and we have like one major, let's say, marketplace platform where basically you can sell a lot of different things. It's not necessarily web shops, but they have a similar type of custodial for money. Like, you buy something from, it's basically peer-to-peer marketplace, and they are the custodial in the middle. Like, but how's that marketplace in the UK? Like, are there any locally, or is Pidgey meant to be kind of like a international platform?
Yeah, I mean, the nearest you've got to things like Etsy Marketplace is probably the nearest thing to that kind of scenario for those type of products. But this is not really trying to compete with the e-commerce behind your computer screen people. This is for when you're in the field, when you're really somewhere around the world and you have that problem, someone been able to solve it. And it's a problem that's solved not very well every single day anyway.
Yeah.
I think one thing we've seen is like in the e-commerce space, like post-COVID, we saw the market increase by 33% when it came to the shipping of e-commerce products. And it's carried on going from strength to strength, a little dip, but it's growing again. But when it comes to brick and mortar physical merchant shops, they didn't benefit from that at all. They had a 2% growth in the same time period. So, there was a problem that needs fixing, and there's a lot to be made from fixing that particular use case or problem as well. So I think the opportunity is massive once it's fixed. It's a little bit tedious, quite figuring it out, but that's where the joy comes. It's from figuring out the kind of small, tedious problems. It ends up making a very big market, and that's what we're hoping to do here.
Yeah, like if it were easy, like we wouldn't necessarily find the same joy in it, especially as entrepreneurs. Like we have that desire to like, okay, this is a challenging thing. How can I make it easy? And just the journey of going through the motions, figuring it out, and basically trying to smash your head through the wall.
Yeah,
sometimes is the joy of it.
Yeah, I love people saying that looks too difficult. That looks like you want to. That's every success I've had has been someone telling me that looks too difficult. I knew I was on the right path.
Yeah. You mentioned in the beginning that you traveled a lot previously, like 70 business reps annually. One of the things that you've done is that like you've managed salespeople across time zones, South Africa, Southeast Asia, and stuff like that. Like, what if we were to kind of like go back to that period? Like, what was the biggest kind of like challenges that you faced doing that, and how would you say that experience have been brought into Pidgey and helped you do things differently now? Because you are in the process, and we're going to come to it in terms of scaling sales.
Yeah.
Like, what's the experience been in the past, and what have you taken out of that and brought with you?
Well, sales I initially just fell into when I was at university as like a part-time job in like financial sales and even car sales at one point. So it's been a big part of my life learning about sales anyway. Then I became a stockbroker after university. So financial sales was really important to me. Enjoying sales. Some people hate doing direct sales with people, but some people like me really enjoy it, and I enjoy teaching what I've learned as well. And I'd actually forgotten how much I enjoy it for quite some time because I'd been doing not sales focused things, but I've been doing lots of building algorithms and things behind a computer screen, and I'd kind of forgotten what it feels like to enjoy persuading people in and out of things sometimes. And so this has been really fun for me, actually, building up this online sales academy for Pidgey. We're able to be everywhere all at once with our salespeople. We have about 80 people a week on sales calls with me, about two a week, and about 80 people at a time. And it's really interactive. We have lots of back and forth and role play. I get lots of flashbacks of things I'd learned and forgotten about, and I pass it on to people there, and they really enjoy it. And then they go out and they tell us their stories of their experiences speaking to shop owners and to merchants. It makes me feel I'm living vicariously through them, and vice versa is what's happening. And we're really building. And the thing with sales, it's difficult to get salespeople to perform when they're solo, when they're on their own. They need to be around other people. So it has been a little bit tricky to do that. But the longer we've gone along, the more we've got the energy into this virtual room of ours of people still feeling confident. Okay, look, I'm in Casablanca and someone else is in Penang in Malaysia, but they're able to connect through our group and feed off each other what they're doing. And at some point, we'll start getting into competition. So we're actually going to have a virtual leaderboard soon. People can start competing with people and trying to get the right energy that they need to perform highly. But also we're getting loads of really good feedback from our merchants, better than I could if I went directly. Like we had our early pilots. I was able to go out and speak to people and get feedback. But now we have someone who is a salesperson who speaks their language, knows their culture, and they're okay. It's not the same as having a clone of me giving that information directly, but they're also picking up information that I maybe wouldn't have got if I was
Mm.
implanting myself into their culture and into their language. So it's a really good research tool. We get better and stronger every single week with our kind of like the ways in which we onboard new shops. And yeah,
Yeah.
and it is fun, and that's a good thing when being an entrepreneur. It actually is fun, and it is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because one of the questions I have written later in my deck here, but I want to bring it up faster is, I remember when we spoke last, you mentioned that you were on the journey to like onboard 1,000 salespeople, like
Yeah.
globally. And I was like, what's the plan there? Because you mentioned it in a by sentence. So I was kind of like super curious to go into this on the episode. Like, but how I understand it is what you're doing in Pidgey in terms of the sales for the scaling international is you're building this, let's say, ecosystem rather than employees of salespeople in the different locations,
Yeah.
and you host them in, let's say, a joint academy community where it kind of like becomes like the town square where everyone can come together and share experiences, and they have Pidgey and all the support and assets from Pidgey, and then they go out and sell
Yeah.
and basically close different shops on the service that you guys have.
So we're making mini entrepreneurs here. We've created a system
Yeah.
where they can earn money. It's not perfect. We're constantly improving it based on feedback, but we've created a system where if you're an entrepreneurial person who's ambitious, and I think no matter where, like, I worked in the city in London and in Germany as well. For lots of other people, they don't have the opportunity to go and work in those regions. But in Pidgey, you can be anywhere. You can be
Yeah.
in Delhi, you can be in Kuala Lumpur, you can be in Cape Town, and you should have the opportunity to make a lot of money. And you can do. We've created a process and a program
Mm.
where you might live in a region where you can typically make $300 a month, but if you're good at Pidgey, you can make $10,000 a month if you're really good at working at Pidgey. And so it's
Yeah.
really appealing to people on the pure financial side of it. But they're learning so many amazing skills that they can take that skill elsewhere. And they're building a client base. They're not just doing one sale, move on. Here's your targets, do a sale. We're not based on like quantity. It's all about quantity in the PG sales process, and it's about creating a client base that they are
Mm.
close to, they interact with, and they like each other. They're both on the same team. There's no real conflict there. You've got a salesperson who wants that shop to do more sales because they get more commission. They're on the
Yeah.
same team, and as soon as that client understands that, okay, we're friends now. There's nothing to. I'm not expecting you to
Yeah.
come and sell me anything. We're selling together, and they have that
Yeah.
mindset. And when that kind of clicks between them, they get that aha moment as a client. They're onto something here, and I think it's a very unique process for someone who might have been a tour guide, or there might have been a customer service person, there might have been a marketplace or tech salesperson. We've had people who are lawyers sign up to be salespeople in their region. We have
Really?
people from Tesla, in fact, funnily enough, people from all kinds of, you couldn't make, from
Yeah.
different kind of backgrounds, who, for whatever their reason is, they just love what Pidge is doing, and they think, you know what, I want to learn more about sales as well, and about travel, and about these other industries. And they come and they learn what we're doing it, and they go out and they build their confidence in a professional setting as well, and they can build this, what ultimately becomes a level of passive income for them from their client
Yeah.
base. We're building, they're building, and I find that with business, if you can remove as many of the conflicts of interest, so you're all on the same team, things work a lot better.
Yeah. I like the fact that you highlighted the fact that the salespeople and the clients are on the same team. They're not trying to sell to each other. It's
Yeah,
basically how can we sell together. I
yeah,
like that because it's a metaphor that I've used for the sales teams that I've trained as well. In terms of the goal is for you and the prospect or potential client to look at the canvas together, like
yeah,
you're on the same team.
yeah,
You define the goal and how can we together work towards that instead of it being just a transaction where you give me this money and then I give you this in return and that's that. But it sounds fascinating. Like, where did the entire idea of structuring sales in this way come from? Was it just because it sounds very similar to all of the, let's say, the last, I think, 2-3 years, it's been a trend of, let's say, if you want to start making money, let's say you're a young lad and you want to work remote, like go into remote sales, because that's the path, and it's been a hype and a trend the past couple of years because it's a need for it and it's potential for it. But like, where did you get the idea of running it this way
I think
specifically?
it comes down to technology, and obviously with COVID and lockdown, everyone was working from home
Mm,
so long. I couldn't imagine being a stockbroker working from home. It just wouldn't happen
yeah,
previously. But with the Zoom and everything else, it's made it a lot easier to do. And I just really like the idea of opportunity. There's so many potentially talented people all around the world who could be doing amazing things. Like
yeah,
someone from in London, where I'm from, is not necessarily going to be the best at this particular role. So I like to give opportunity to people to do pull off something amazing in their own lifestyle. So I love that underdog story, and I want to keep creating that
hmm,
underdog story as well. So it's a little bit personal, and technology is what's created that scenario.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting because it's I've been a lot involved in, let's say, the rise of e-learning. And there's been plenty of, let's say, business opportunities within e-learning, and just launching an e-learning course is something that a lot of, let's say, especially in consultancy, they build their skill set, they launch a product or a course on it, and they make more money doing the course than doing the skill set that they
Yeah,
teach. But this sounds like a completely different thing. That it has that same type of, let's say, entrepreneurial gateway or gateway into entrepreneurship, but
definitely.
not fully with all of the risks and all of those. Let's say
Yeah,
the pros and cons that comes with entrepreneurship. It gives someone a door to go into to gain that additional freedom, but be part of something that they don't necessarily need to invent from the ground up.
yeah.
So I really like that idea. But one of the things that was, I guess, essential for this is moving from the the stage of founder-led sales that every entrepreneur and founder needs to go from
Mm.
to more product-led sales. Like, what was that transition like in the on the notion that you're now building the sales team in this way that you've described so far?
So when we were on location in places like Bali and Malaysia, and I was out there kind of in the shops, learning how we could improve the product whilst doing that sale with them. I guess it was easy for me because my passion was coming out anyway, and I know the product really
Yeah.
well, so it wasn't difficult for me to do. But it's a different skill trying to get other people to share your passion and to have relevance to them and their life as well. So that took a bit of thinking about to make sure that was happening, and I feel like that is happening with our sales team. Um, Fortunately, we have something that is unique, and people on the ground who see that problem all the time, they connect with it very, very quickly. We get
Mm.
lots of letters and emails and messages saying, "I love this. This is going to help my local community of businesses here. This is what they need." They understand it. People who maybe live where I live don't necessarily understand it because it's not relevant to their experiences.
Mm.
But people who live in those kind of tourist-focused regions, especially, they understand it immediately. So, in fact, building their passion is not too difficult to do. It's not very far, not a very distant movement from that founder-led sales with the at the kind of front of it as it is with the product-led sales because um, they're so closely intertwined with how we're
Mm.
learning. Normally, if you're doing like product management, you would be trying to get feedback from a group of users and see what their response are to certain things. But we are doing the exact same thing, but just live in the field. And it's not. It used to be that a response was just a complaint, or someone said, "Oh, I don't like this, don't like that." Um, but because we've got clients who feel invested as well, they feel invested in the success of this. They understand, right?
Mm.
If this works well, it will work well for me. we get a different kind of communication back from them, and people are pretty responsive. I think we had over 4,000 points of either communication or feedback from users.
Really?
Yeah,
That's a lot.
last what 4 months or so, maybe less than 4 months. So people do respond back a lot, and it does help our process of improving the product.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like that will allow you guys to kind of have a very short cycle in terms of feedback then to like get the feedback, iterate, improve, and then make it even better.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. One thing that I'm a bit curious about on that regard is kind of like, what's been the biggest finding so far in terms of like, have you had any like initial thesis in terms of like, okay, this is how we think that we should go about doing this, where the feedback then, let's say over the past 4 months has been like, okay, maybe we should do it differently. And how do you guys then handle that feedback to take out the findings and implement it? Like, is there any routine established there, or is that basically a bit about how you feel like it?
Taking out the bias is always difficult, but it's been just down to failure. Anything doesn't work normally, something's wrong. You make tons of assumptions with everything. With our design at the moment, our UI design, it's very regular that she will say, well, this is what we should do normally. And I'll say, look, think this again, because I know from experience so far, I thought exactly what you're saying previously, and I was completely wrong. So let's just save you some time here. Read this feedback. This is what we should do instead. So it is an experienced game, and I've had some really good kind of product managers and designers around me who are always throwing in lots of really good influential points that have really helped. But as it is with UX and UI, you just have to test it in the market to find out whether it works or not. And we quite often find out that the kind of user, the kind of brick and mortar merchant in Casablanca or in Bali, they don't think that way. They're not going to. Like, for example, I thought that the Pidgey app would just work pretty much like Amazon in a way. If you can use the Amazon app, you can use this app. Turns out, no. It turns out not at all. Turns out the people who their brains think in the way of operating with someone physically every day, they're not looking for the hamburger menu tab on the side. They don't even acknowledge what that means. They're not able to think in those kind of terms at all. So we had to. That's why our AI chat thing is really helping us. At least we think it's really going to help from our test so far.
Yeah.
Because it's more conversational, it's more normal, it's more natural, it's more how people communicate between each other, the way that it's been arranged now. And we wouldn't, without making our previous versions, even this AI version would have been completely different. It wouldn't have been the way it is now. It's just based off that experience that we built it to communicate in the way that it does. And I felt a lot more confident about this version because I've had so many interactions, so much validation from merchants, that this will work in a way that they'll be able to use really easily and enjoy using it. And that's one thing, actually. People talk about stickiness, people talk about being entertained, and it's hard to value what that entertainment feeling is. But I've found that people need to have the aha moment, see the value in it, and actually enjoy using it. And in the previous, if they had to use an Amazon app, they wouldn't enjoy it because they need to. That's not how their brains work. They need to think about it a lot.
Yeah.
But our new app is actually fun to use. It makes you want to use it, and it's very natural. And we think that it's really going to do wonders in their use of it.
Yeah. Well, the next point was actually getting into this specific thing, because when we spoke last, you mentioned that there's a version coming that we're really, really excited about. And that was the entry of AI in a much larger degree in terms of more actually being an AI fully app compared to what it was in the past. Like, what is new, or how do you guys use AI in this? You mentioned that instead of the hamburger menu, like the pop-up or the drop-down, it's more the conversational aspect of it. But could you give let's say, a small introduction to that? Because this episode is likely going to air after this is released. So then you're not going to spill any beans.
It's almost like a blank screen, really. It's just a chat window where before we had all the like bells and whistles on all this great tech, whereas now it has even more great tech, but it's in the background where the user is oblivious to what's even going on. When it comes to them, like creating the app creates a tailored experience for the user, but it acquires the information, that data from them in such a natural way. They're hardly aware that they're giving over all of this information that changes the way in which the Pidgey app is treating them. Because before you had a static application that you had to just figure out which bits of it were useful for you. Whereas now the Pidgey app removes the bits which are not relevant to you. So you can just focus on, like, if your only thing you want to do is send a parcel, that's all you're going to see until you ask for something different. If you want to create an order by listing products and treat it more like a marketplace, that's what it's going to give you. So, and it really reduces how much time you'll spend pressing buttons. In fact, you can press no buttons on this app now, and you can just talk to it, and it will recognize your language. So you can talk to it in Norwegian, you speak to it in Japanese, and it will immediately respond to you back in your language. And when you want to, so there's lots of, like, with logistics and supply chain, there's lots going on in the background. It used to be really, really tricky, but a little bit less tricky now, such as your HS codes, your import and export codes for your products, making sure all that information's right. And we've worked really, really hard. We'd already figured out how to make all these commercial invoices be automatic, but now we make the whole landing process so smooth that the person who's sending is really oblivious. They're really fully oblivious, but they can ask. They can just say to the Pidgey app, "What's the code for this? How much will it cost from here to there?" They can ask this question, and I'll get a straight response without having to click around and find where it is. They can just ask it, and it will tell them in their own language as well. But a lot of what's going on, all the complicated stuff, they can just be really, really oblivious to. Because we've got it under control by using a much smarter level of data collection and fulfillment within our system now. So we are really, really excited about it, as you can tell from my voice.
Oh yeah, I bet. Huh. That's interesting. So basically, so what you guys are pretty much doing is that you're removing the likelihood of human error, basically, in terms of logging and punching and data entry and all of these different things. Yeah. Like, how did you come up with this as kind of like the add-on, as a natural next level and progression of the app, which you're currently working on? Like, was it I assume that a bunch of feedback from the marketplace was one aspect of it, but kind of like, was it just like, how can we use AI and look at all the feedback, and then the ideas came flowing in?
Everyone and their dog was telling me, "Oh, just do AI, do AI. It's the thing now, do AI." And I was really, really reluctant to do AI just for the sake of doing AI. I didn't want to be that guy. So I wouldn't have even used AI right now unless I was adamant that it is the most important thing to be using. And I think some of our current investors, one yesterday said to me, "Well, I told you to use AI last year." And I said, "Okay, I wasn't being stubborn. It's just that, no, we hadn't had the feedback yet that we knew that AI would really work, and maybe also where AI was last year compared to where it is now as well. It's a different place." So it's definitely a necessity. It needs to be this AI version, but I didn't want to just cheaply use AI just as a gimmick. Like, it's imperative to its success now with this new version, and it's going to make a massive difference in the industry.
I think that's so important in terms of not just being and slapping the AI buzzword on it just for the sake of doing it. It actually has to have one tangible but also essential part in why it's being used. And this is also a bit of what I'm just passionately interested in. Is there's a lot of talk about AI and using AI, and it's becoming kind of like a buzzword. And I had an episode that actually was published just a couple of days ago, where we touched upon this, in fact, that it has to have some depth to it. Because at some point, we're going to get to the point where how many billions upon billions have been invested into AI, and how much do we actually have to show for it?
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see that pivotal moment where, okay, now the actual tangible use cases for AI starts to emerge. And it sounds like this is actually, it could be one of them in terms of for logistics, where it simplifies the entire user experience for merchants in terms of just data entry and gathering and just ensuring that everything is synced up correctly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And I think with business, you always, not always, but people should always think about defense, how they're going to defend the business. Because if you create something that explodes and does really, really well, everyone wants to copy it immediately. They might
oh
not
yeah,
copy it as well, or they might copy it better than you. So when you're kind of building your sandcastle, you've got to think about the defensive as well. And that's one thing that with Pidgey, we think about a lot. And a lot of that comes from using real people who are highly motivated for the right reasons in their local communities, speaking to people that they know, that you can't just imitate that so easily around that. So we're happy to be quite quiet under the radar, except for me shouting
yeah.
about it on this microphone right now. To be building up this kind of this network. That's our value. The network is really our value on top of this
Yeah.
technology that we've built.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. So you're gonna have a couple of months head start in terms of when this episode is gonna go out. So, but I find it interesting because like I definitely believe that, or it sounds like the way that you guys structure the sales, let's say operations of Pidgey, is most definitely a moat in terms of being able to have a competitive advantage because like establishing something like that is going to take time and be hard, especially when you scale towards that 1,000 sales professionals or salespeople. Like, but what's the way that you guys find those people now? Is it that it's very tailored, very like low volume, or like do you have any like full marketing plan
Um,
to headhunt those basically?
the acquiring the salespeople is really easy. We've had about
Mm.
7,000 people apply
Mm.
just from job boards, people online.
Yeah,
We've thought about what we're offering quite thoroughly, and people like what we're offering. They like the opportunity ultimately. So we have a lot of people apply. At one point, over 100 a day we were getting. It's like the numbers just go crazy. And we're really trying to slow it down. We I don't think we've put out a new job advert in months, to be honest with you.
mm.
We're really trying to slow it down. So the supply side is really, really high. The onboarding was really slow for two
Yeah,
reasons. One, a lot of it was manual. It was taking about 30 minutes to onboard someone once they kind of gone through our academy. And then also there were too many touch points in person. But I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to
yeah,
like to know something deeply and make it work. You have to just do the legwork. So at one point, I was from about 5:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning, until like midnight because of different time zones. I was just in
yeah,
constant calls. I mean, you know, what it's like being in constant calls.
yeah,
I was in constant calls and going through these like 45-minute, 1 hour calls with people, interviewing them. But you know, I was learning from them. I'm learning what they want. There's no point me giving them something that they don't actually want. I wanted to find out what they want.
hmm
I wanted to find out about their local area, what things are being sold, what kind of tourists are visiting. So it was a massive educational process. This went on for months, just constantly
yeah,
doing this. And it's only in the last maybe 5 weeks now that we've reduced it down to I only do 2 calls a week now. Um,
mm.
and a lot more of the process of onboarding is automated. I now only take 8 minutes per person onboarding rather than 30 minutes. We've just finished designing this really good new onboarding system, which means there'll be zero time taken now, just be done automatically. We'll actually we've built some really good psychological testing so we can try and find out from the off who are the good potential salespeople for this particular job. And we're going to
Yeah,
benchmark against those psychological questions. And the ones who do well, obviously, we want to get more of those than the ones who don't, or we might change,
hmm
improve our testing questions as well. So our challenge has been make that process minimal time for us, easy and for them, whilst they still learn about Pidgey and how to make money from the Pidgey process. Um, and give them all the kind of like tools that they need as well. So we're building that at the moment quite furiously, and I'm really excited about that as well, because that would be less of my time being spent.
Yeah.
We will acquire. We'll get to 1,000 when that's where we want it to be. We'll get to 1,000 salespeople easily, and beyond. We'll get to over 1,000 people.
Yeah. So is the goal to build this process of like you have all these job posts out there that basically is kind of like the hook on the bait on the hook that brings people in, and the entire, let's say, job application process, screening, qualification, selection, onboarding, training, and all of that is meant to be basically streamlined and automated.
Yeah, be completely automated. But I mean, there'll still be a human touch. They'll still have like a real human doing the motivation and sales training, but in
the academy.
Yeah, in the academy, in the groups. But the process to hearing about this job, learning how to do it, going out and doing it, that'll be an automated process.
And so basically, what's the kind of like the threshold? Is it that someone needs to, let's say, go all the way through the academy and like perform to a certain degree at the end of the academy until they can go out and start selling it, or how do you structure that?
So there are quizzes. They have to pass all the quizzes anyway.
Yeah.
Either pass, I think it's like 70% pass mark on all the quizzes and the assignment they need to do. It's been criticised as being too long, which we keep reducing it, but it is a bit long. But then again, you need someone who has grit, who actually really wants it. If I gave everyone like here's 10 questions, get these right, and you've got the job now, our actual performance in the field would be terrible. And we're trying to, I hate to use the word family. I'm not even going to say it, but we're trying to build something meaningful. We're trying to build a meaningful network here of people who feel proud of what they're building. We started doing silos as well recently of like 4 or 5 people in a silo in their town working together, because it's not so great when you're in a lonely environment, to be honest with you, in sales. We've been building these silos as well. That's how we're doing it.
I think the word that you were looking for is tribe, not necessarily family.
Tribe, yeah, I'll write that down.
Yeah. Create a cohort within a tribe. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, I think it also makes sense to just not make the process too short, because I also agree with you that the grit would be necessary. Like if you don't have if you see the opportunity, you understand the opportunity, but you're not willing to work for it, of course it's going to be bad when you get out into the field, and then you're going to complain, and then you're going to point fingers, and then you guys and Pidgey centrally is going to be the one that basically hurt. So it's kind of like always looking at what's the outcome.
And these clients, this salesperson is their teammate now, and they're going to help them do sales. But if they've got a really bad teammate, they're not going to do sales. It's going to look bad on Pidgey. Their experience will be bad, and it's not helping anyone. It's not even helping the salesperson, because they're not doing any business anyway. So it is better that the qualification is not just that you want a job. The qualification is you've tangibly proven it, that you really want this role, and now you're going to go out and you're going to go and earn what you want to accomplish, rather than, because I've just so many people who just come hands out. Yes, just give me a job. I'm really good. Trust me. Let's make this happen. They're always the worst ones. It needs to be the people who, every time I even hear that from a salesperson, trust me, I'm really good at this. You won't be sorry to work out. Those words are like just kryptonite to me. I know it's not going to work out. The people who are kind of quiet, keep their heads down, ask me lots of questions about what they can do in these scenarios. They become students of this particular skill. Those are the ones who go on and make money, not the ones who are just trying to sell to me all the time.
Yeah, I like that. One final thing that I want to touch upon before we start to round this up is, you mentioned investors. Like I've talked with a lot of people that either has tried to raise funds post-COVID and also pre-COVID, and the landscape is completely different. Like, what was the experience in terms of trying to raising and getting investors in for this? Because again, you mentioned the height of COVID and the experiences that people had then, and basically building something like this would need investors because it's fairly tech heavy.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I'd made some good money previously from previous startups I'd had, so I had some exit money to play with,
Mm.
which helped a lot. Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are now. I mean, be zero chance of it, to be honest with you. I think we just missed that 2020 period of when everyone was handing out money.
Yeah.
But I necessarily would have received it anyway. And then so we've never really been in that environment either of people kind of venturing. No one ventures anymore, is what you find with VC. And I'm going to try not to badmouth VC here, but it's supposed to be venture capital, but there's literally no venturing anymore. It's just I get calls every week. Hi, how much money are you making now? Okay, cool. Well, when you hit this target, then we'll put some money in it. I won't want it, and neither will any other founder worth their salt.
Mm.
Don't want someone kind of leeching onto what you're doing. You want someone to give you the extra bit of fuel. And we're not later stage; we're early stage. But I know that a lot of VCs are struggling to raise the money they had before, and there's lots of very clear memories of lots of VCs losing their jobs when times got tough for 5 minutes after the Silicon Valley Bank going down. So they're trying to protect their jobs, which I understand. But yeah, I don't see. I'm not sure what to make of this industry at the moment. I know maybe like 80% of professional investments into startups didn't work out. It's
Mm.
really high numbers. And I think it's when you're an amateur, an individual, and you're making that many bad choices, not bad, but just the wrong choices. No one can really predict what's going to happen. Other people wonder why they should bother to pay you when they can make
Mm.
not so good choices themselves anyway. Why they're paying you 20% a year for it? I think that's what's hitting the industry a bit. There's a bit of kind of who's behind the curtain going on with everyone trying to make out that everything's okay when everyone knows that this is the lowest industry's been for at least 10
Yeah.
years now. And every year we think, oh, it's okay. This is the bottom now. It's going to get better. It's not getting better because there are some really obvious and clear fundamental questions that industry needs to ask itself that no one wants to ask honestly. And that's why the hole keeps getting deeper and deeper.
Mm.
The value proposition of those professional investors hasn't been proven. You've got a few who have, because they're working the whole power dynamic anyway, they just like, we don't care about the 80 we get wrong, it's the 20 we get right and the 5 that really get right that really matter. But that's actually terrible for entrepreneurialism. It's terrible for
Mm.
founders. It's only good for the VCs, to be honest with you. And if they're lucky enough, the investors of the VCs sometimes. But for the founders, they're just in a cattle market where we've spent the last 3 years distracted by the story we've all been sold about just be on the next trend. You do AI. That's why I didn't want to do AI. You do AI, we'll invest in that. You do this, you do that. I didn't want to be the next failure. And then it built an industry of. I'm just here whinging, so tell me to stop.
Yeah.
Um,
Just go ahead. I like this. I enjoy
just
it.
get moaning on the mic, like a therapy session. And then you've got lots of founders who are not legit founders as well, who just wanted to. They should be in a corporate firm, in a career somewhere, but they came up with an idea or they joined another startup. They were able to raise money really easy because their background, their face, what they were doing at that particular time fit. But they had no grit. They had no real entrepreneurial experience. They raised money really quickly, went bust really quickly. Things got things went a bit awry and they quit. It happens to so many of them. They just saw it as a job. So they are career people. They're corporate people moonlighting as founders. And because of that, a lot of real founders with grit who are much more likely to succeed have missed out and will continue to miss out.
Mm.
And it's a lot of money's been wasted on the wrong kind of founder. And even the people who are the gatekeepers to this money with these VCs, most of them are not operators themselves. So when I say an operator, I mean from nothing, be a founder operator. Very
Yeah.
few of them are that. They don't know the science to look out for and what makes a good founder. They just want the quick return from. So I had a VC tell me, well, I'm investing in this company because no, it's going really quickly. They just incorporated 3 weeks ago. that sounds ridiculous to me. That's a good sign that they don't know what they're doing. They just started 3 weeks ago, but because they're so fresh to you, I'm like, what are you talking about? There's a lot of that going around. There's a lot of just idiocracy going around in the world, let alone in this space. And that is why this hole keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and founders are not benefiting from it, and therefore the investors are not benefiting anywhere near as much as they could be, because it's a broken system right now.
Yeah. I like the tangent, and I think it highlights one important fact, that if you were to come, like, everything we sell and everything that is sold is basically a service or a product.
Yeah.
If we then put VC, what do they sell? They basically sell the money.
Yeah.
But if you then look at the customer experience of that product, which is the money, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's like you say, like 80% of, or even 90% of the bets go wrong. And then the question would be, okay, let's not focus on the 10% and 5%, but let's focus on the remaining ones. Like, what can VCs actually do? Like, would the market approve of a product where it's 90% failure rate, where you basically get it, you buy it, and it goes to shit? Probably not. And I think it's, and this is what about my thesis in terms of our venture studio that doesn't give money, we give infrastructure. Like, what infrastructure does a company need? Like, what for marketing assets, what sales assets, what operational processes and systems do you need? Because that's what every single company need. But it's more just tossing money down the drain often. Like, you have no clue where the money goes, no obligation to spend it on this and that. It's just like, here's money, take it.
And you have less of a conflict with that. You have less of a conflict because you're being very tangible about the things that you're investing your time and efforts and skills into, because you sincerely believe that this will make this business work. That's the story that lots of founders are sold, that, hey, look, we're going to give you $100,000 and we're going to give you all these resources. $100,000 comes, the resources do not come. And but what pressure comes saying, well, look, you need to hit these figures, so you better spend some money on Google Ads to get this going. And then they try and find shortcuts of just spending stuff on Google Ads rather than really thinking outside the box. And then they run out of money, and then they're just in the 80-90% of companies that didn't work out. So there are some issues there that just don't work for founders. And like you said, if people focus more on the 80-90%, why those are not working, what's similar about them, they'd probably have a better chance of. Because the thing is, like, you need to pick the outliers, and lots of VCs love to say how they pick outliers. They do not pick outliers very specifically. They only invest in what everyone else is investing into, because it comes down to the individual, which is, well, if I invest into an outlier that people are not really looking at, and it goes bust, I'm going to get the sack. But if I invest into just any bog standard Web3 at the time, or AI now, whatever's popular right now, and especially if the paradigm has been pulled by like Andreessen, like a big VC firm, if it doesn't work out, no one's going to look at me because, hey, they got it wrong, I got it wrong. That's my personal risk reduced. But that personal risk management is massive conflict with the returns of their fund, or the success of the founders. Is a massive conflict there.
Yeah, this is interesting. We could probably talk about this for hours, but I think, given the promise that I made you, but also in the essence of length for this episode, I only just have one final question, and I ask this question to every single guest that I have on as well, and that is, if you could get an answer to one question related to your business and what you do, Leroy, what would that question be, and what would you like to know?
It's I think there's an old saying, or someone said it, that you shouldn't go past your point of success. Whatever you set to be that point of success, if you're always trying to go past it, you'll forever be unhappy and want to be happy in life ultimately. So what the question would be, what is that point of success for you?
Now, that's interesting. That's interesting. Not the default that just scale as far as you can, but actually look inwards and reflect on what is the thing that I would be happy with, and build everything and apply every plan basically with that as the center.
I think when it's just thought about how far can you scale. So let's look at it in pure numbers. Let's just say I've started a business. We've raised 20 million. We've scaled. It's now worth $1 billion. This business. Am I happy with it being worth $1 billion? Great, you've accomplished something, but how is it affecting you personally? Are you now able to not worry about money anymore? Or are you just going on to your next thing? Because almost every founder is always on to the next thing. And it's not always, in fact, it's mostly not because they just love being a founder. It's because they've not got enough money. Regardless of how big their company scaled to, they were not structured into it well enough to really financially benefit from it. And they don't want to tell anyone, but that's a scenario that they're in a lot of the time. And they have to keep on going. And the chance of you can keep making that same mistake that prevents you from having enough money in your pocket to kind of be in a retirable position, and you might never learn from that. But what I personally find it a really odd target to be. Well, I just want to scale to $1 billion. That doesn't even compute with me as a human being. I want to not have to worry about money anymore. That's one key thing. More money than I can spend. That's my capitalist side of it. And I want to reduce my long-term stress in my life and be happier. But if you have to keep on wanting more and more and more and more and more and more and more forever and ever, you're never going to get out of that. You might as well just work in a normal job, to be honest with you, because you're the same level of stress anyway. So there's not much. Ego is up a bit more, but it's the same issue. So I find that really important to me, because I used to, when I worked in the city, I used to say, just more, always more. But as I've got a little bit older, I think I can actually accomplish more without that mindset. Like I'm beginning to form a clearer understanding of what is that meaning of success for me, and it doesn't include scaling to the moon.
You could argue scaling to 1,000 salespeople is quite the scale, but I like the question. I like the. I enjoy it and like the question nonetheless.
I'm ambitious. Don't get it wrong. Go way past that.
Yeah. But Leroy, this has been really good so far. I really enjoyed it. If someone wants to reach out, learn more about Pidgey, connect with yourself, what's the best places to go?
Pidgeypost.com, LinkedIn, Leroy Lawrence. Drop me an email, but I'm very easy to find online. Just Google the name and I'll turn up.
Yeah, good stuff. We'll try to make sure that, but at least the LinkedIn URL is in the show notes and in the description when we finally publish this. But Leroy, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.